Everybody, happy Friday. It's Insta Live on Fry, and your host, Audrey Button from Safe Harbors of the Finger Lakes. I use the pronoun she, her, hers, and it is the last Friday of January. So we've wrapped up, Human Trafficking Awareness Month and Stalking Awareness Month, but like always, you should always be aware of those things throughout the whole year. So we did the 2 Fridays of human trafficking awareness topics, and then last Friday we did a stalking awareness one, and today we're also doing a stalking related topic. So we're going to talk about how stalking is portrayed in the media. So I'm kind of excited, and I'll kind of give a warning now that I will probably give some spoilers because we're going to talk about a TV show that's out right now, and I'll get into that in just a second. So before we get started, I just want to give a content warning because some of the material I might discuss may be sensitive to some, so take care of yourself however you need to. And the video will be saved on our Instagram page and on our YouTube channel. So if you want to check it out later, if you didn't end up getting here in time for the live video, that's fine. And so the views and opinions expressed in this video are not necessarily those of Safe Harbors of the Finger Lakes, but of those in this video. And so with that, we'll get into it. But before I kind of get into the more media part of stalking, I'm going to talk about stalking myths, which could kind of be probably derived from stuff that's portrayed in the media about stalking. So I'm going to go through these and kind of debunk some of the myths that we probably all think about when it comes to stalking. So the first one, only celebrities are stalked. I know I see it all the time on clickbait and online about a celebrity being stalked or harassed, they broke into their house, things like that. But in reality, celebrities are being stalked, I'm sure, but also everybody else in the United States. A lot of people are being stalked. About 6 to 7.5 million people are stalked in a 1-year period in the United States, and that's probably severely underreported. So, keep that in mind. It's not just celebrities, it's every person. It could be someone on the street, a friend or a family member, somebody like that. Second one, if you ignore stalking, it will go away. Most likely not. I'm not saying that to, scare you or at all, but stalking can get really complicated and it can escalate really quickly. So the best thing to do if you're ever in that situation is to reach out for support, like an advocacy service like Safe Harbors or law enforcement or etc. And with advocacy services, we can connect you to whatever you need and be a good support and help you through, to make sure that you're safe in that situation. 3, stalking is creepy, not dangerous. Stalking is creepy, but it's also dangerous. 20% of stalkers have used weapons to threaten or harm victims, and 85% of completed and 75% of attempted femicide, so that's female deaths, killings, there was at least 1 episode of stalking the year prior. So it can be extremely dangerous, and usually, especially if it's a former or current intimate partner, they tend to escalate a lot quicker with more serious things like weapons and threats like that. So 4, stalking is annoying but not illegal. I know I talked about this last week, but it is illegal in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, U.S. territories, the military, and tribal lands. So it is legal, and like I said last week, it's just dependent on where you are. It might be a misdemeanor or a felony. So it's important to become familiar with your laws. So if you're ever interested in what the New York laws are around stalking, you could always reach out to us. And then, so number 5, you can't be stalked by someone you're still dating. Like I said a couple before, usually it's intimate partners, past or current, that are the stalkers. So, I don't care, it's usually someone you know. So, half the time it's usually a partner, former or current. If it's making you uncomfortable, scared, and they're using unwanted contact, giving you unwanted gifts, monitoring, surveilling you, causing property damage, threatening you, etc., this is stalking, no matter if it is your partner that you are currently dating or not. 6, modern surveillance technology is too expensive and confusing for most stalkers to use. Not true. Stalkers can buy surveillance and monitoring technology for as little as $30 and can easily track a victim with a phone or computer. And we'll talk about that when we talk about the TV show, because this person actually surveillance the person with the phone. So we'll kind of in GPS technology, which is really easy to access. I could go on Amazon right now and get it, which it's just readily available. So just keep that in mind. And then the last myth. If you confront a stalker, they'll go away. And like how I kind of talked about before, they are unpredictable. They can escalate quickly. So just reminder, reaching out for support and help from an advocate and law enforcement would be helpful, just to make sure you're safe. And that's the important part. So we'll get into the media part and why this is kind of problematic in terms of how stalking is portrayed to us, and how people are very unfamiliar with how serious it is and how many people are actually affected by it. So media tends to romanticize and normalize stalking. Like in movies and TV shows, typically you see this. So the typical profile, and I say this in quote, of a person who's really a stalker is an underdog, usually, who studies, I'm using quotes, studies their crush, joins the same activities as them, ask around about them, so maybe asking their friends or classmates about them, and they coordinate coincidental meetups. You tend to see this in a lot of rom-coms. That's the typical profile of that kind of person. And I mean, not saying all of them are all stalkers, but there's some stuff about that that's definitely some red flags about the obsessiveness and everything that like fits the profile of, like, there's no specific profile, but that tends to be the characteristics of a stalker. They tend to want to learn everything about this person and go out of their way to do it. So following them around, joining the same stuff as them, asking friends and family about them, and things like that. So and while thinking about that, and if that person that they're apparently have a crush on objects to their affection, they are usually seen as playing hard to get. And so this person who, is usually seen as the underdog tries harder to win them over. So they go above and beyond to try to, even though they clearly laid out boundaries that they're not interested or they don't want to go on a date with them, but they keep trying harder and don't respect those things. So those are some red flags as well. So, and I know we all have probably done this. I know I have, joking about Facebook stalking, or I guess since a lot of people probably don't use Facebook anymore, just social media stalking in general. We joke, oh, hey, I stalked you on Facebook and I saw you went to this place and I thought that was really cool. Okay, so we'll kind of talk about how that's problematic. Because we just use the word casually, because people who are experiencing stalking, it's just overwhelming. And we talked about the impacts of this on people, the feeling of constantly looking over your shoulder. They have anxiety, PTSD, depression. Like, it's just, they've had to, change jobs. They had to move houses. They have to completely change their life because of this person in their life stalking them. And so, I'm not saying if you've used that phrase, you're a bad person, but I mean, I've done it. But just being aware of how you use the word and just being aware of how this affects so many people and the lasting impact it has on people. And I just want to make sure people understand, media does not cause stalking. Only perpetrators are responsible for their own behavior. They chose to do it. It's not, I watched this movie and this made me stalk because it told me to, or the guy in it did it and it seemed to work for them, or what have you. That's not true. But it does, set a tone in terms of it's not taken as seriously as it should because of how it's portrayed that way. So, using stalking casually dilutes the meaning of the word. And stalking is severely underreported and misunderstood. So just keep that in mind. Stalking criminalizes things that may not be criminal on their own. So sending a bunch of text messages on their own, that's someone's just sending me a bunch of texts. But someone who's being stalked by this person, they might be terrified, trying to block their number. They keep texting them on different numbers, or they have pretend to be somebody else. There's so much technology out there it's absolutely crazy. And I've mentioned them before, but stalkingawareness.org has a lot of great information about that kind of stuff, and how, because we didn't go into a lot of depth about stalkers and using technology, but what seems normal to some of us could be terrifying to them. It's about context, and how the victim survivor feels in response to that situation. So keep that in mind. So I like to say, people may, see stalkers as awkward or romantic sometimes, but for example, one of your coworkers receives a bouquet of flowers. They walk in and they're on their desk. They're like, "Oh, who's your secret admirer?" That's so sweet of them. That's so romantic. But you might be terrified because it's someone that you thought didn't know, had been stalking you and didn't know where you worked, but now they know, and they sent flowers to you, and then you're absolutely terrified. And they might be confused to why you're acting that way. And just keeping that in mind, being aware of how someone might respond, being supportive and making sure, they help them feel safe if you ever notice that. And it can be complicated, so don't make those assumptions. So just be conscious and empathetic towards people who are experiencing these things. And they might not want to share that with you, but just being aware. If they're having that response, don't question or judge them for that. Maybe just say, "Hey, are you okay? You seem upset. If you need anything, I'm here to support you." Things like that. Okay? So, we're going to talk about the TV show You. So, if you want to bop out now, because I'm going to have some spoilers about it. I just started watching it, so I know they just came out with season 3. So, we're mainly going to be kind of talking about season 1, because I haven't gotten into season 2 at all. But, so if you want to leave now, go ahead, leave now. But we're going to talk about You because it definitely encompasses stalking and how it's portrayed in the media, across the board. And it's a very popular show. A lot of people have been talking about it, and we're going to talk about how it's problematic. So, with the TV show You, there's the main character, Joe. So you're in Joe's head throughout, the TV show. He appears charming, physically attractive, well-read, and has some redeeming qualities about him that makes him kind of likable. So if you're not familiar, Joe stalks a girl, and her name's Beck. So just to kind of give some background. So we're kind of following through Joe's point of view throughout the whole series. So you kind of get to know Joe, but then there's some qualities about him that make him likable too. So they do that on purpose. They can be manipulative and obviously portray themselves as a great person. And most stalkers are probably great people in the eyes of most other people, and they do that on purpose. So keep that in mind. So Joe references rom-coms throughout the series to justify his stalking behavior. He learned that behavior from a rom-com. And like I said, media doesn't cause stalking. It's the perpetrator who causes the stalking. But he uses that as a justification for his really kind of creepy and scary actions. So it's a psychological thriller, not a romance. And I think people get a lot of confused with a lot like that usually, because everyone's like, "Oh, Joe's so attractive. He seems so likable. I kind of feel bad for him." Yes, but also he's done a lot of horrible things throughout this, so just keeping that in mind. It's a psychological thriller. You're in the mind of Joe, who's the stalker, who does all these horrible things, and we'll get in that in just a second. So, just some other examples before I kind of hop into You a little bit more. I don't know if there's any Twilight fans out there. I know I used to watch those movies all the time when I was younger. But there's some good examples of stalking in Twilight. And I know we're going to go into Twilight next month for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, but I'm going to focus on the stalking aspect of Twilight, which is when Edward, he's always following Bella, including breaking into her room to watch her sleep. And he even told her he did that. It's a little concerning. And there's just an older movie that I don't know if anyone's seen. It's a rom-com, and it's called There's Something About Mary. Ben Stiller's in it. He plays Ted. So he hires a private investigator to find his high school crush, and has this investigator, and he also stalks her throughout the movie, along with the investigator. I won't go too much into it, because in case you haven't seen it, that's another example of them romanticizing stalking. So going back to You, what makes Joe appealing to the viewers of this show? Like I said, he's attractive. And there's that concept of love at first sight, because you see that from the very beginning of the TV show. It seems really romantic. You're like, oh, I loved you since the first day I met you, kind of thing. And that seems to be a common theme in a lot of romance and romantic comedies. Like I said, this is not a romantic movie. It's a psychological thriller. So they try to push that concept out to you. And you see Joe's kindness at times. Like, he does do some apparently good things throughout, the series. Like his relationship with his young neighbor, Paco. Paco has kind of a troubled childhood, so, he's always out and about because Joe passes him when he goes back to his apartment. And, he does do really nice things for Paco to make sure he's taken care of. So there are good things about Joe, but obviously there's also a lot of bad things about Joe, which I will talk about right now. So, Joe stalks Beck by following her, watching her through her window, and showing up wherever she is coincidentally, or just to watch her. And he uses technology. He took her phone at one point, so he was monitoring her texts and using GPS to figure out where she was. So it's pretty easy for someone to do that. And he stalks her through social media, so he keeps track of her posts, what she's, sharing out to her friends and followers, messages on social media, and so her social media presence to kind of get an idea of who she is and all this information about her that makes it easier for him to stalk her. And so he also escalates into breaking into her home and stealing her property. He also uses her friends to get info about her. It kind of gets dark. He ends up trapping people in Beck's life, and he impersonates them to make them seem like they're doing okay if, they're wondering where they are. And I don't know if I want to share the whole thing, but then it escalates into something very, very bad. And so I won't go into more. I'm sure I already ruined most of it, so I hope you guys didn't get this far if you didn't want me to ruin it for you. But the thing with you is that people thought it was romantic. They had obsession with Joe, the character. But, even the actor who played Joe had to remind people that this is not okay. This behavior of what Joe did was not okay. Obviously, everyone's like, it's just a movie. But, if we're still, normalizing this through the media, that's what we're exposed to, and we don't have the real information about what stalking is and how it impacts people, that's problematic. So I'm going to end there for today, but I could go on forever about you, so hopefully once I watch season 2 and then go into season 3, maybe we can have another discussion about this. So just, keeping that in mind on how serious stalking is and how many people have been impacted by it, and what you can do to help people in your own life. So, but like I said, if you want more information on stalking or just how to support people, you can go to stalkingawareness.org or obviously call Safe Harbors of the Finger Lakes. So, like always, you can call our hotline, which is the 24-hour hotline at 800-247-7273, or go to our website, which is www.shflny.org. And so, but if you ever have questions or comments or concerns, you could always message us on our social media or comment, share things. But thank you for tuning in, everybody. I hope you have a great weekend. And make sure you check out our schedule for next month. I just posted it, I think, yesterday. But for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month next month, we're going to talk about Beauty and the Beast. We're going to be talking about Taylor Swift songs. We're going to be talking about Twilight a little bit more, and we're going to talk about how music and how it, talks about violence in relationships and things like that. So it's all pop culture focused for next month. So tune in. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend. All right, bye.